Hey, it's April 1st, no joke, and today we find ourselves in Judges chapters 6 and 7. Now, have you ever wanted to do something but felt significantly and completely unqualified and ill-equipped to accomplish it? Maybe you thought you had the wrong background, the wrong skill set, not enough life experience, not enough education, maybe little or no resources. Whatever the reason may be, if describes you, then you'll relate really well with Gideon, another nobody that God uses to save his people. Gideon is probably one of the most famous judges in the Old Testament. For me, it's a toss-up between him and Samson. Chapter 6 opens with Israel again doing what is evil in the sight of the Lord. And so God allows the Midianites to enslave and oppress his people for 7 years. Verse 7, Israel cries out to God, to their credit, earlier than any previous time. And God sends them an unnamed prophet to let them know, hey, this is because of what you did. You turned your back on me and worshiped the false gods. But in spite of that, he still sends Gideon to deliver them from the Midianites. Verse 11, God finds Gideon in a very unheroic state, beating wheat in a wine press to hide it from the Midianites, fearing that they would take it from him. If you know anything about threshing wheat, which most people don't, this is not how it's done. You thresh wheat on a hard, flat, dry surface, elevated so the wind can blow across, and as you throw the wheat up in the air, the wind blows away the unedible chaff and the edible wheat falls to the ground. But he's in a wine press, indoors, a damp area, trying to separate the wheat and the chaff and possibly ruining a lot of the grain in the process because he's afraid. Not a very likely candidate for what he's about to do. God greets Gideon in this unheroic state, saying, "The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor." Now I can see Gideon, looking behind him and saying, "You mean me? You got to mean somebody else." But Gideon then says, "If the Lord is with us, then why has all of this happened? Where are all of his wonderful deeds that our father recounted to us?" Actually, he then accuses God of turning his back on Israel. Instead of what really happened, they turned their back on him. Now God is patient and ignores what Gideon says and tells him to go save Israel from Midian, saying, "Do not I send you? You're going to do this." Verse 15, Gideon questions God's wisdom here, saying, "Please, Lord, how can I save Israel? Behold, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least of my father's house, insignificant, a nobody." But God tells him, "I will be with you." To Gideon's credit, unlike Moses, this is enough. And he wants to obey God and doesn't make any more excuses. But he needs a little reassurance. Can you relate? He asks God, if this is really you, let me bring an offering to you. And so God waits. Gideon brings the offering. God accepts it. Gideon freaks out, realizing, I have been talking to God. And God reassures him, don't worry, you're not going to die. You're going to do what I've asked. So his first assignment is actually not defeat Midian. It's a confidence builder. Simply tear down the altar that your dad built to Baal and his Asherah pole, and then offer a proper sacrifice on a proper altar. Now Gideon does this at night because he doesn't want anyone else to see him, so still a little afraid. However, he took 10 of his servants with him to help him do this. The servants talked, and the townspeople find out, and they demand that Gideon be killed for what he's done. Gideon's dad steps in, not wanting his son to die, but also not wanting to lose face with the townspeople. He says, if Baal is God, then let him deal with Gideon. And all the townspeople are going, yeah, Baal will deal with you. And of course, Baal's nobody, false god. Gideon's fine the rest of his life. So, second assignment, this is the big show, to defeat Midian. And Gideon needs a little more reassurance, and this is the infamous fleece account, where Gideon asks God, if this is really you and really what you want me to do, I'm going to put this fleece, this wool blanket out on the ground, and in the morning, let it be wet from the dew, but all the ground be dry. And of course, that's exactly what happens, because God is asking him to do this. But Gideon still needs a little more reassurance, and he asks for the opposite. Let the ground be all wet tomorrow morning, and let the fleece be dry. And again, that's exactly what happens. Now, sufficiently encouraged, Gideon collects an army. Chapter 7 opens with the fact that Gideon actually got 32,000 men to fight against Midian. And God says, too many. And so Gideon tells all the men, hey, who's ever scared, you can go home. and he loses two-thirds of his army. 22,000 men leave. Gideon's thinking, okay, this is good. And God's like, nope, still too many. And so Gideon takes them down to some water, and they drink. And God tells them, everyone who drinks from hand to mouth, putting their hand in the water, bringing it up to their mouth, they can stay. But everyone who drinks like a dog, just on all fours and their face in the water, lapping it up, they get to go home. And so only 300 are left. And God says, this is who gets to fight. They are going to go attack Midian with you. Verse 9, God gives Gideon a little more encouragement. I'd be feeling a little discouraged if my army went from 32,000 to 300. And so he sends Gideon down at night to the Midianite camp with his servant. And they overhear a very strange dream that one Midianite soldier is sharing with his fellow soldier. It says, behold, I dreamed a dream, and behold, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian, and came to the tent and struck it so that it fell, and it turned upside down so that the tent lay flat. I've had some strange dreams, but I've never dreamt about rolling bread, destroying buildings or tents or anything. But in verse 14, the soldier's friend answers, this is no other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. God has given into his hand Midian and all the camp. Again, sufficiently encouraged, Gideon prepares his men for battle. Verses 16 and following describe the battle, the preparations, and what ensues after. The weapons, not mass weapons of destruction, trumpets, empty clay jars, and torches. And the plan is to surround the camp, blow the trumpets, smash the jars, and then hold the torches and yell. And so that's what they do. And the Midianites come out of their tents, they see them surrounded by torches, they hear the trumpets, they heard the breaking of the jars, and they think they are surrounded by a massive army. They start freaking out, attacking anything that's moving, which happens to be each other. God has thrown them into confusion, and after killing a sufficient number of them, they start running away, where Gideon calls 4 tribes of Israel to pick them off as they go. So Gideon's story finishes in the next chapter tomorrow, but what can we take away from today's chapters? First, God wants to use us to accomplish great things. It doesn't matter who we are. God blesses belief and faithfulness. Second, God gives us the encouragement we need to do his will. 4 times in these 2 chapters, God gives Gideon signs to let him know, I am with you, you've got this is what I want you to do. Third, God is patient with us. He knows our struggles, and he helps us through them. He meets us where we are at and makes us into the godly men and women that he wants us to be, if we're willing to trust and follow him. Please continue to follow our Through the Bible reading schedule. You can find that at HespericCommunityChurch.org/throughthebible. I'll post the link in the description below again. And thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.